Hello, I'm Jamey with Stonemeyer Games, and for this week's Sunday Sit Down, I have something a little different, although maybe not that different. I've spent the last 3 days having a blast at Geekway to the West here in St. Louis. It's a local convention where you pretty much just go and play games for 3 or 4 days. For me, it was 3 because I wanted to work some on Sunday today. And although it's been a little bit of work over the last few days, but fun work. I'm playing games that are new to me with new to me people, and some games that I've already played with some people that I've already met. Anyway, I don't know if you're interested in any of this, but this is how I spend my time at a convention like Geekway. I like to play a lot of new to me games with a lot of new to me people. And I thought today I would share some superlatives for the new to me games that I played. And so I'm actually a little bit prepared. I have some photos of all those games. I will be talking about them more in detail in my favorite game mechanism videos over the next few weeks. But today I just wanted to share some superlatives for these games. And most importantly, I want to thank all the people who took the time to play these games, learn them with me, or teach them to me. I really, really appreciate that. That really made my Geekway experience really special, and it was fun for me to play games with you. So let's start out with the best component that I played with. This was very tight. I need to cheat a little bit and say 2 games here. But the first one I'll mention is Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a game about planting trees. Each of these trees, see how they're slightly different colors? Each player has their own color of tree. And you're planting them on this common forest. As the sun moves around the forest, creating shadows that some trees block other trees. And that's the really cool thing about this component. The height of the trees really matters, and it shows you visually which other trees they're blocking, depending on how tall or how short they are. The table presence is really beautiful. I think it takes beautiful photos too, which I find is increasingly important for the game in this Instagram, Facebook world, that a game looks great in photos. And so I want to give best component to Photosynthesis. The one that would have been right up there, I'll talk about later, but I'll show you. Here's a photo of it. Abyss. I played Abyss, and I loved the pearls in Abyss. I thought that would be a runner-up for best component. Best value. Best value of any game. I put these out of order. Best value has to be, for me, Tiny Towns. Tiny Towns is a very new game that takes kind of the Merge 3 mechanism that is in a lot of video games, mobile games like Triple Towns, and it combines it into a really, really beautiful game. Really interesting tactical decisions, and also kind of planning ahead as best as you can. And both the replayability and just the sheer production value of this are excellent. I believe this is a $50 game, and the amount of wood in the game is incredible. Like, it fills the whole table, the amount of wood that's in this game. And everything about it are high quality. The cards, the player mats. I love the variability from the cards. So in this game, I don't know if I have a specific example here, but like this building, if you want to construct this building, you need to have this configuration of resource cubes on your mat, and then you pull up all those resources and put a building down on the mat. And this card is associated with a specific building type. And there are a bunch of cards for each building type. So each game will be very different, I believe, based on which card ends up randomly associated with that building type. So Tiny Towns is my best value game. You get the best value out of this game out of all the games that I played. Next up is, this is why I switched it. Yeah, so this is best twist on a classic mechanism. And this is Railroad Revolution, a game that kind of looks like an older game, but it actually just came out a few years ago, and I hadn't had the chance to play it. Many of you, in fact, many of these games are games that you have recommended on this channel specifically, and I put them on my list to try them. And the twist that I really like in this game is the worker placement system, where you have all these different workers. You have white workers, and then you have a bunch of other different colors that you can acquire during the game. And each one you put on your player mat to take an action, and then you slide it down below that player mat, kind of like in Scythe, how you're pairing a top row action with a bottom row action, but these mats aren't asymmetric. So you slide it down, and then based on the color of that worker, you can gain a special ability down here. And I just really like how the colors of workers matter, which is cool, but also how the mat tells you that the different colored workers mean something different when associated with each different action. So the blue worker means 4 different things depending on which action you're using, which might seem like a lot. And at the beginning of the game, it was a little bit overwhelming. But I just like that with a single token and a well-made player mat, you can offer so much variety and so many interesting decisions based on which types of workers you try to get and what you get when you actually place those workers. So a really nice, cool, elegant twist on worker placement. The runner-up here would be Eminent Domain, which I also thought had a really nice twist on deck building. But I'm going to talk about that anyway right now. Eminent Domain is the best older game. So I believe this game came out maybe 5 or 6 years ago, which isn't even that old. But I feel like it isn't talked about all that much these days, and I really wanted to play it. I've been wanting to play it for years, and I finally got to play it at Geekway to the West. And to tie it to my last superlative, best twist on a classic mechanism, I love in Eminent Domain how there's a follow mechanism. So on my turn, I'm choosing an action that only I take, and then I choose a common, I believe it's called a roll. I choose a roll that's displayed on a common board up here. And all of the players have the choice to follow that roll, to take that same roll action. It's kind of like an action. And what I really love about that is that the cards in your hand at any given time when another player is choosing a roll, the cards in your hand matter. So if another player chooses the colonize action or the colonize roll, the number of colonized cards in my hand matters. I can use those cards. I can spend them, get them out of my hand to use them to follow that roll and to benefit from it. So I really like that little twist on deck building and also a little bit of like Puerto Rico San Juan follow mechanism where you're looking at your cards and that actually matters. That is Eminent Domain, the best older game. There is actually another game that's even much more older, but I'll get to that one in a minute. In fact, I've lined all these up by coincidence. The other really old game is High Society. We played an older, the old version of it that we found in the Geekway library. I've heard that there is a beautiful new version that I was hoping to try, but I think mechanically the two are pretty much the same, just with very different art and very different style of cards. So this is High Society. This is an auction game that I'm putting in the best small game category because it fit into a box the size of a single deck of cards. It's not a lot of cards, but we played it twice in a row because in an auction game, the first time you play, you may not really know how much you're betting. I spent $52 on something that ended up being almost useless. But what I really, really liked about this game, one of my favorite things, is actually two things. One, the cards that you're bidding on are a combination of good and bad cards. So at any given time, there's one card that you're all bidding on, and they're either good things like this one, which doubles all of your points. So this card is worth 4 points that I earned. It'll double it and become 8 points at the end of the game. But there are also some misfortune cards. And the auction is actually different when you're bidding on a misfortune card in that the first player to pass, kind of like in For Sale, the first player to pass is the player that must take the misfortune card, and all other players must spend their money. The other thing that I really liked about this is the way actually I don't have an example here, but the money cards that you have in hand, there are specific denominations. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 6, and then 8, and it jumps up 20 to 25. So you have all these different number cards, this currency, this money, and it creates a new type of decision making because if I only have in my hand, say the 8, the 1, and the 20, and I bid 1, then my next bid I can't bid a 4. I don't have like loose currency that I can make change out of. I have to. My next bid, if I wanted to bid, would be the 8 or the 20, or I could combine them and make it 28 or 29 total with all those dollars. So that adds a different level of decision making to an auction game that I really enjoyed. That's High Society, the best small game, and a very old game as well. This is one of the newest games I played, and I'll give this the award for the game that has the best progression throughout each session of the game, because I love games where the things that you're doing at the end of the game are better than the same things that you're doing at the beginning of the game, and that is Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. This game has some really, really cool mechanisms. First, over here, this might seem a little bit familiar. As you're constructing buildings, the benefits that you earn from taking actions associated usually with those buildings get better. And also the Mancala mechanism is just really, really cool. I've seen this in a few different games. But I love that this is kind of an ebb and flow progression system, and that when I'm taking, when I take the Crusader action up here, see I have 4 tokens up there? I take all those tokens off, and so my Crusade value is worth 4 plus any exposed Crusade icons up here, or whatever they're called, military icons. So I have 2 of those exposed up there. So it's 4 tokens plus those 2. So the progression over here ties with the progression over here and to add up to 6. But when I do that, I have to take all these tokens and I have to move them around the Mancala, so I have to spread them out again. So I can't just take this one action repeatedly over and over again and have it be really powerful. I have to spread it out. I have to work forward. I have to plan ahead a little bit. But it's nice when it builds up to a really powerful action that I can take. So yeah, that's a really great sense of progression in Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. Best interaction. So a lot of these games actually have some really interesting interactions with other players, but I think my favorite would be Tournament at Camelot. So this is a trick-taking game where you don't want to take tricks. You want to avoid taking tricks, and so you're trying to get other players to take these tricks and to chip away at their health. So instead of gaining points in this game, you're chipping away at other players' health based on the tricks that they gain. And one of the really nice twists in this game are these cards that have this blood splotch on them. So at strategic times, you might try to make sure certain players end up with these cards because they're double the health loss at the end of the round. At the end of the round, for every card that you have, regardless of the number on it, is a -5 health, unless it has the blood splotch, and then it's -10 health. So I really like that you are constantly paying attention to the health of the other players. You're trying to hurt the player who has lost the least health. In our game yesterday, we were playing with a guy named Daniel Zayas, who's involved in the industry. He taught it to us. And Daniel hardly took any tricks. So as we started to realize this, we were trying to actively help Daniel win tricks or take tricks, and also give him cards like this that would cause him to lose more health. We were unsuccessful. Daniel was very good at the game and crushed us. But I really like that element of interaction in this game, how you're kind of constantly poking at the player who's in the lead, but that might shift over the course of the game. So you're not, and it's also, you're not taking it personally, because if you were in the lead, you fully understand, okay, this is why people are targeting me at any given time. So I really like the interaction in Tournament at Camelot. So this is a game that I talked about a second ago in terms of component. This is the best game that wasn't on my list to play. So I had 10 games that I really wanted to play at Geekway to the West. And then I got pulled into a few other games, and I like that I get pulled into random games here and there. Photosynthesis was one of them. But the best game that wasn't on my list that I really enjoyed was indeed Abyss. It's a really streamlined, elegant game in terms of the mechanisms. There's only really 3 different things that you can do on your turn. You can gain one of these leaders. You can gain allies, which are smaller cards that help you get leaders, or you can start an auction that has a kind of a closed bidding system, or not even a bidding system, where if I put a card on the table, the player to my left has a chance to buy it for 1 pearl, so they can give me 1 of their pearls. If they buy that card, or if another player buys the card, I continue that auction. I continue to reveal cards, but the next player to buy one has to pay 2 pearls because of the second player to buy one. Just a really elegant system, and they're paying me. It's a closed economy, so they're paying me because it's my turn. There's some nice engine building with the leaders. There's really a lot more that I'll talk about in my favorite game mechanism video, but I just really, really enjoyed Abyss. And the art was amazing in this game. Art and world building really felt immersed under the seas in Abyss. This is the game that I want to most play again, which would probably be very close to Tiny Towns and Abyss. But I'm going to give this one the edge because I loved the puzzle in this game, and that was Sentient. Or Sentient? Sentient? I'll say Sentient. This is it's a very puzzly competitive game. I actually went into it thinking it was cooperative for some reason, but this is a competitive game where you play 3 rounds, and you're trying to match up the goals of each of these cards, these big cards, with the dice that are rolled at the beginning of the round and that sit at the top of your mat, and that how these dice are manipulated during the round impacts the goal here. So, for example, this card right here says that it wants the dice on either sides of it. Let me see if I can straighten that out a little bit, to be even. So as you can see, a 4 and a 6, they are even, or the dice plus each other, when they're added together, that it adds up to an even number. So 4 plus 6 is 10 is an even number. So since I accomplish that goal, I will get 3 points at the end of the round. But when I placed this card, It's a little hard to see here, but when I placed this card, I had to increase the number on this die by 1, and I had to not change this die at all. That's an equal sign. So as you're playing these cards, you are immediately impacting the dice and changing the dice, but also trying to choose the cards from a global tableau based on which cards that you think you can accomplish by the end of the round. I just had a blast with it. It's a weird puzzle. It's very abstract, but it just meshed with what I want from a puzzle in a game. And I was thinking about it afterwards. This is one that I'll probably have to pick up because I really, really enjoyed playing Sentient. That's the best game that was that was the game that I most want to play again. It was on my list to play. My most memorable game is going to be Lords of Vegas. This is another older game that I had the pleasure of playing. And you're building casinos in Vegas. You're not really rolling. Well, there are times where you roll dice. And actually, that ties with the thing that I want to say about this. But typically when you place dice on the board, you place them matching the number that is below it on the map. A lot of cool stuff in Lords of Vegas. But the thing that I love the most, and the thing that made it the most memorable, is that there is the option to gamble in this game, to essentially play craps against another player's casino. So you can bid a certain amount. There's a limit. I think it's like $5 per tile in their casino. So if someone has a 3 casino tile, you can end up bidding a total of $15. And then you just play craps. You roll 2 dice once. And if you hit one of these numbers, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, then you win, and that casino, that player at the table pays you. If you bust, so if you get a 5, 6, 7, or 8, you pay your ante to that player. So again, a closed economy system here where you're paying other players. But I gambled 4 times. This is the thing that made this really memorable. I gambled 4 times. 1 against all the other players and then twice against one of those players. And I lost every time. But I had a blast doing it. I knew what I was getting into. I knew that I could lose every time I did this, but I also knew that I might be able to get a lot of money and walk away with a lot of money and spend a lot of money on doing some powerful things on the board. But I didn't. I lost 4 times, and I remember it. I'll remember that experience for losing. That's the wonderful thing that I think is the case in games that have some luck and randomness. If you're open to the experience and you're open to having bad luck at times and remembering it and having that be a positive experience, then that can be a great thing in gaming. So that is the most memorable game that I played. I have 2 more here. The game that was the easiest to learn, I'm going to give to Rise of Tribes. Because at Geekway, one of the things that you do is you check out games from the library in the Play and Win section, and you sit down and just go through the rules and learn them on the spot. You don't always have a teacher or someone who knows how to play. And that was the case with Rise of Tribes. We sat down and we just learned how to play it together. And it was actually strikingly easy to learn because each of the actions are divided up. It's one of these games where on your turn you can just take an action, see how it works, show the other players how that works, and then let them take their turn and use a different action so you can all see how it works. But the mechanisms are so streamlined in this game that it really made it very easy to play. It didn't have many fiddly rules at all. Like it had a very simple rule involving conflict in the game that we all understood right away after we read it. And just overall, the rulebook was well done. The game was very well presented, graphically presented well, and it was just very easy to learn. I think that's a great asset in games today. That's Rise of Tribes, easiest game to learn. And finally, I'm going to give the award to the tallest game on the table, which isn't Photosynthesis. It is Expancity. Expancity is a game where you're building these towers throughout this city that you're sharing with other players. And I indeed had the tallest tower here. I think it was maybe an 8 or 10 block tower. And it just has a really nice table presence due to the elevation that you're adding throughout the game. So tallest game goes to Expancity. Those are the 12 new to me games that I played at Geekway to the West. I look forward to talking about them more in detail in an upcoming video. But if any of these categories strike you with a game that you played recently, feel free to name it in the comments, or feel free to share your thoughts on these games that I mentioned here. I'll note them in the description below so you can remember which games that I just talked about. So again, feel free to talk about these games or add your superlatives to games that you played at Geekway or that you added recently. I'd love to hear about that in the comments below. I think that's it for today's Sunday Sit Down. I will see you on Tuesday with a favorite game mechanism video, probably about one of these games. Thanks.